Hello, I finally decided to make an in-depth Frost Mage guide for PvP, which will be arena oriented most of the time. Most of the things I'll be talking about will be arena oriented, but I'm pretty sure there's many guides out there. I just wanted to make one for Atlantis, and for the people that just started out with a class and want to learn Frost Mage, I believe I can help out in a few aspects. I'll try to keep this as simple and as short as I can, and I won't try to overcomplicate things. Alright, first of all, I'll be talking about talents, glyphs, how you should itemize, what your stat priority should be, what add-ons you should be using, macros, professions, and of course what your playstyle should be as a Frost Mage. First of all, stat priority for a Frost Mage will be the following: 4% hit chance, followed by intellect, followed by anywhere from 17 till 21% critical strike chance, and finally mastery. Since spell penetration is not working on Atlantis, you can ignore the stats completely. So I didn't know this. I found out a few days ago that spell penetration is not working. So if it happens that you have a spell penetration neck, you should change it for critical strike chance. But if you're playing on a server that has working spell penetration, your stat priority should be 4% intellect. 4% hit chance, followed by intellect, then followed by 240 spell penetration, then critical strike chance, mastery, etc. Also, haste is really bad stat for Frost Mage and Cataclysm. It's not the same thing as it was in Wrath of the Lich King, where you wanted to get as much as haste as you can because you were spamming Frostbolts. Since the playstyle of the Frost Mage changed, haste does nothing but it's nothing but a global cooldown shortener. So you should reforge all the haste that you have to either crit chance or mastery, dependent on how much crit chance you have. For profession that you should be going for, you need to get professions that give you flat amounts of intellect that you can use in arena. So that's either jewel crafting, tailoring, enchanting, engineering, or alchemy. Personally, I'm using alchemy and herbalism because I get a free flask of 8 intellect that's also usable in arena, and also when I made a macro, so when I use my DPS cooldown, I also pop Lifeblood, which gives me a flat amount of haste of 500. As I said, haste is not a good stat for us, but it helps out when we're trying to kill somebody. It helps out with the global cooldowns, etc. Gem-wise and enchanting, you need to get 60 intellect and 35 resilience for your headpiece, 50 intellect and 25 resilience, I believe, for your shoulders. Since 4.2 rolled out on Atlantis really soon, a few days ago, I still didn't enchant my shoulders. I'm just gearing up for Ruthless, but you want to get 15 select and 25 resilience. I believe that's the correct enchant. For cloak, you want to go 15 select. For chest, 40 resilience or stats. This is debatable, but I personally like resilience, so I went for 40 resilience. Even though I'm playing with a priest partner, with a healer. For wrist, you want to go 15 selects, weapon for power torrents, 14 select on your offhands. You want to go for mastery and hands, socket bonus on your waist, which will give you flat 40 intellect, which you will put 40 intellect in it. 95 intellect and 80 stamina on the legs. 35 mastery rating and minor movement speeds increase. For gems, for red gems, you want to put 40 intellect in, which are called brilliant inferno rubies, I believe. Yellow, you want to put artful embers, gives you 20 intellect and 20 mastery. As I said, mastery is really important for us. For blue gems, if you're not hit capped, you want to put field demon's eye, which give you 20 intellect and 20 hits, so you want to reach that 4% hit chance as a mage. You don't want your spells missing. you don't want your spell missing, but since my auction house didn't have any of those, I just put 20 intellect and 30 stamina, but keep in mind you would never want to use these gems. Stamina gemming on a mage is just horrible, or any class if you plan to PvP with it. For add-ons that I'm using OmniCC, Gladius, LoseControl, MoveAnything, Sound Alerter, Quartz, and Plate Buffs. The add-on that you can see that I managed to move pretty much everything where I want to, so I can keep things in the center, so I don't tunnel as much in arena, and allows me to keep track of things much more easier. It's called MoveAnything. As you can see, I moved the frames much more to the center. You should be using Gladius if you plan on doing any form of arena. It keeps track of enemy trinkets. I'm also using Sound Alerter, which is a helpful add-on. It just announces when enemy uses major cooldowns. I'm using Quartz just because I like it when my cast bar it's bigger. It's not doing anything special for you, it won't help a lot, it's just a visual add-on. As long with Polar Auras, when I get a proc, it just looks much nicer. I'll try to get a single proc of something. Let's say when I get Fingers of Frost proc, I have this little thing instead of the usual UI that I have. It's just the visuals. And also I'm using OmniCC and LoseControl, extremely helpful add-ons. As you can see, when I use the cooldown, it has a little timer on it. So let's say if IceBlock and there's 4 minutes of IceBlock left to me, and my partner asks me how long until you IceBlock, I can say 4 minutes because it's much more helpful. There's an actual timer on my cooldowns. And also if a rogue, let's say, opens on me and he kidney shots me, and the kidney shot is 3 seconds, it's gonna pop out here, it's gonna say 3 seconds, just a helpful thing. For the talents, these are the talents you should be using. There's not much space you can tweak. These talents is pretty much the core talents you should be using as a Frost Mage. The most important ones are Shatter and Fingers of Frost. This is what makes the Frost Mage work. As I said, when you freeze a target, you multiply your crit chance by 3 on the same target thanks to Shatter. Fingers of Frost, your offensive spells have a 20% chance to proc Fingers of Frost, which allows you to which allows your Ice Lance to treat the target as if it's frozen. So when you get the Fingers of Frost proc, your Ice Lance treats the target as if it's frozen, so it applies Shatter and it applies Mastery rating to the target. And also it allows the use of Deep Freeze, which usually you will have to walk up, freeze the target in order so you can Deep Freeze it. But when you get a Fingers of Frost proc, you can use it from a big range, you know. So it's an extremely useful talent. It's what makes the Frost Mage work. It's what gives the Frost Mage the burst that it has. Also, when we spec into Fingers of Frost, we need to take Improved Freeze. It just gives a PetFreeze. When we use it, we get 2 free Fingers of Frost stacks, so we can use it as a Deep Freeze, as a Ice Lance proc. Anyways, also Brain Freeze. Your spells no longer trigger arcane missiles. Instead, they're triggering Brain Freeze. So whenever you deal damage, you have a chance to proc instant Frostfire Bolt, which you should be using all the time. And since we're using Glyph of Frostfire, it increases the damage of our Frostfire Bolt by 15%, and it makes it apply a little dot on the target. It's not big dot, it won't be doing a lot of damage, but it just gives us a dot as a Frost Mage, which is extremely useful, especially against rogues, to keep them out of stealth. But the downside of it is that the slow on the Frostfire is removed. It's no longer applying any slow, but that's fine since we have really fast cast of Frostbolts and Frost Novas, Conf Colds, etc. Icy Veins, just a really good talent. It decreases our haste, but most importantly, the pushback suffered from damaging attacks while casting is 100% less, so it's completely negated, so it allows you to burst the target more easily without worrying that your Frostbolt will be 3-second cast time, which would be ridiculous. Cold Snap, when activated, this spell finishes the cooldown on all of your frost spells recently cast. So let's say we Ice Blocked, we can Cold Snap and Ice Block as soon as the debuff is done. If we Deep Freeze, we can Cold Snap and Deep Freeze again, or Deep Freeze another target. Just a cooldown that can be used both aggressively and defensively, depending on the situation you're in. Ice Barrier, this is our shield. Instantly shields you, absorbing 15k damage, lasts for 1 minute, and most importantly, while the shield holds, spellcasting will not be delayed by any damage. Frostfire Orb transfers your Fire Orb into Frostfire Orb, so when you throw this out, it will proc the slow on the target, it will be slowing the target, and also it will give you free procs. See, it procced my Trinket, it procced almost everything, my Powered Torrent. It procced Fingers of Frost, it procced Brain Freeze, so just an amazing spell to use. You'll be probably using this when you're trying to burst somebody down. You get so many procs of everything. And also from Fire Talents, we're picking up Burning Soul, Improved FireBlast, and these are, you know, important. Burning Soul is extremely important, FireBlast not so much. It can be used when we're silenced in Frost School, so we can throw out a Fire Blast. And the reason why we're going into Fire Trees to get 1 point in Blazing Speeds. When you hit by a melee strike, you have 5% chance to gain movement speed debuff, and you won't be able to be slowed for the next 8 seconds. It helps out to you know, get into position from warriors, rogues, death knights, etc. It's just good talent. And most importantly, we get 2 points in impact, which gives us a 10% chance to reset a cooldown on our Fire Blast and makes the next Fire Blast stun the target for 2 seconds, so it can be used to stop spellcasting, you know, to force out some defensive cooldowns, etc. Or, you know, to get away from somebody. And finally, we get 2 points in Counterspell. Your Counterspell also silences the target for 2 seconds, usable both for aggressive playstyle and defensive. You know, you can, if you think you can kill somebody and you have a shatter coming up, you can use a Deep Freeze. You can just blanket Counterspell the target, so he won't be using any defensive cooldowns, and you can make sure that he will die. Or you can use it as a focus counterspell, so, you know, you just blanket CS the healer and kill the DPS if you believe you can kill it. For the glyphs that I'm using Glyph of Cone of Cold, just flat 25% damage increase on Cone of Cold. It's not doing any damage as it is, but, you know, 25% damage is nice. As I said, Glyph of Frostfire, it deals 15% more damage, it applies dot that stacks 3 times, it doesn't do any damage actually, but, you know, it's useful against rogues. You have a dot as a Frost Mage, but it's no longer slows the targets, which is fine. We have Frostbolts, we have all sorts of kits that we can use to slow the targets. We're using Glyph of Ice Lance, since our Ice Lance will be pretty much the main damage dealer. Apart from Ice Lance, for the major glyphs we'll be using Polymorph, Evocation, and Frost Armor. Frost Armor allows us not to go in melee matchups. Evocation, just a good defensive glyph. It allows us to restore 40% of our health as long with mana. When we use it, and Glyph of Polymorph removes the damage over time effects from the target. Since we have Glyph of Frostfire, we can remove the dots from it when we polymorph the target if we have a plan to switch to another target. And since I'm playing with Priest, since we're playing extremely aggressively, he'll be applying dots to the target all the time. So if we want to switch, thanks to the Glyph of Polymorph, that's, you know, gonna be no problem. Also for the minor glyphs, nothing special, you can put whatever you want to, but the one I recommend is Glyph of Slowfall, which your Slowfall spell no longer requires a regent, so when you can spam it. And the reason for this is when a mage or a priest or somebody is trying to dispel something from you, let's say a priest shield, you can spam the Slowfall, so, you know, if the RNG is on your side, they'll keep wasting their mana dispelling Slowfalls. Which, you know, it's useful. I believe I went over everything. That's oh yes, I also wanted to keep in mind why I don't use a PvP trinket. Since I'm playing with Priest and we're playing, he's disciplined, but since we're playing extremely aggressively, I'm not using a PvP trinket as a mage. Since I have IceBlock, I have 2 IceBlocks thanks to Cold Snap that I can use as a PvP trinket. I prefer to have 2 DPS trinkets that help me out with the damage, because he's not doing that much damage. We're just trying to force out cooldowns, force out defensive cooldowns, and go for kills when the trinkets are over. So these 2 DPS trinkets help me out with that. For the playstyle, I'll be talking about the playstyle in next few minutes. The easiest advice I can give you in order to improve as a player or as a mage, as any class, is to keep bind every single spell that you use, and especially for the spells that you're gonna use like Polymorphs, Counterspell, impacts. You will need macros so you can use them as a focus target spells as well. So as you can see, like using Polymorph as focus, Counterspell as focus is extremely important as a mage. FocusDeepFreezes, like simple macros as IceBlock, you know, so you click it again, you remove it. You don't want to IceBlock, then wait until IceBlock is done, or try to right click it off and then you remove the buffs like an idiot. You need macros for this, so I'll post the macros in the description for every single, the most important ones you should use. You should keep bind every single one of those that I link, and you should try to get used to them. At first it's gonna be clunky, especially if you're not used to keybinds, but that's the easiest advice I can give you. Keybind everything and try to be as efficient as you can. That will improve you as a player, and later the things come along by themselves, like decision making, etc. If you're playing a mage in arena in a 2v2 matchup with a double DPS, let's say with a rogue, you'll try to maximize your damage outputs on a single target that you're going for. So let's say you're playing against a priest and a warrior. You'll want to freeze them both, polymorph the priest, go on warrior, you know, deep freeze the warrior, shatter off with a frostbolt, ice lance to keep some damage going. You need to understand how the class works and when to use the cooldowns, when can you go really aggressive like cold snap, deep freeze again, you know, for the more damage, more shatters off. If you're playing more defensive comp, like something like Mage and a Priest, which can also be played in a really aggressive way, you'll mostly go for the forcing the enemy cooldowns without using any cooldowns yourself. So let's say, again, you're playing against a warrior and a paladin, you will polymorph the paladin, try to force out his bubble while doing damage on the warrior, and well, when he bubbles off, you can polymorph the warrior, counterspell with the blanket, the paladin, and then use icy veins and all of the combos so you can burst him down. It's really dependent, you just have to keep practicing until you get it right. I hope my guide helped in some sort, in some aspects, and I hope you have fun playing Mage.